Well, while we're waiting for folks to join here, are there any things that you want to make sure we're talking about in the panel, or that, like, obviously we have the questions, but are there points that you either of you would really like me to dig in on, or something like that?
I guess it's not DevRel specific, but more DEI specific, in that it's everybody's job to make sure that they are advocating for everyone, whether you're a designer or QA engineer or backend engineer. So it's not just DevRel, it's not just your BRGs. It's really everyone's job to make sure that you're taking a look around and seeing who's not in the room and making sure that you're speaking up for them, or saying, how do we get these people in the room?
I love that. I'll make sure that if you don't have the opportunity to call that out, I'll ask a specific question for that.
Okay.
I'm also gonna try and hold you to the trying to make sure that you have sorry, let me just pause. Hello. We're gonna get started in just a few minutes here. In the meantime, please enjoy the cool music that's gonna pop up in any second here. Hello, folks. Welcome. I am so excited to have you all here. We're going to go ahead and get started and let others roll in. I know with the start of a webinar, for me, I always have a hard time ending my last meeting and all that and coming. So we'll go ahead and get started and make sure that we're respecting the time of everybody we have here. And if you're catching this on the replay, thank you also for joining us there. My name is Nick Quinlan. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Major League Hacking. Major League Hacking is an organization built to empower hackers. Really what that means is that we work with technologists on every stage of their career journeys through things like hackathons and other educational mechanisms. We're a company built to do this, and built by people in developer relations. Our co-founders and myself all come from developer relations backgrounds. And so one thing that we've been doing lately is hosting community activities for the greater developer advocacy, developer relations, and developer marketing ecosystems to get together and have opportunities to chat, connect, and learn from each other. And this month, in honor of Pride Month, we've brought together some incredible developer relations professionals. We have Jenna Ridden and Shubhangi Gupta here. I'm going to let them tell you so much more about themselves, but we're here to talk about LGBTQIA plus folks in developer relations. I think it's a really exciting topic and full of some really exciting and interesting intersectionalities of identity and technology. And let me tell you, I had a chance to just chat with the panelists just before this, and gosh, are they cool? Gosh, are they interesting? So without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you about why they're so cool, and then I will start sharing a little bit and asking them a little to tell us a little bit more. So first, Jenna, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how your journey in DevRel got started?
Yeah, so my name is Jenna Ritten. I'm the lead architect and chief developer advocate for InnerSource at IBM. I am a non-traditional person in tech, so I did not go to school for computer science. My background is actually in foreign language and linguistics, and was on the med school track before I decided to move from Detroit to San Francisco and attend a coding boot camp. And coincidentally enough, it was really the meetups and actually really the hackathons around San Francisco that really got me excited about transitioning into tech and seeing all of the possibilities of the level of impact I could have in the tech space. I actually learned about IBM through a GE Minds and Machines hackathon that a group of friends and I participated in, and we ended up winning second place, going in knowing nothing. And so that was really exciting. And IBM facilitated the hackathon. So it kind of opened up a door for me to look at them as a where I wanted to be. And they have a lot of apprenticeships. So it was a really good opportunity to learn and grow. And I moved from infrastructure to platform to DevRel. And kind of caught the wave of learning, but it actually has been really amazing because I've been able to grow my skills in a lot of areas as opposed to just one specific product or platform.
That's awesome. And I love the journey. I love hearing a hackathon shout out in there. I can't wait to dig in a ton more. But first, Shubhangi, tell us about yourself. How did you get into developer relations?
Hi folks, I'm Shubhangi and I've been a developer advocate right now with DeVice, but I've been in space for almost 2 years. I started my community journey back in 2018, where I attended the first DevFest, and I was in college and I had this notion that developers are kind of boring. And when I went to DevFest, I realized that they're ready to help, and a lot of them interact and talk as well to people and not just computers. So that's how I got interested into the field of DevRel. I kind of explored a little bit into the community side, and then got into DevRel because it's a good mix of tech and people. So yeah, that's my journey with DevRel.
Incredible. Well, thank you both so much for sharing a little bit about that. I'm actually going to ask a question because I'm hearing a parallel between both your stories. It sounds like the people really brought you into technology and to being a part of developer relations. Jenna, you started talking about seeing an impact. Shubhangi, you talked about people showing you how fun and exciting technology was. Is that something that you try to bring into developer relations? Is that something that influences how you do DevRel? Starting with you, Jenna, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think coming from a manufacturing city like Detroit and being thrust into, the heart of Silicon Valley and what tech can look like, that when I've moved around to other cities or gone back home, it really motivated me to bring back the magical wizard behind the screen that you get when you go to, a workshop at Google's office, or you go to a TechCrunch conference, or GitHub Universe, right? There's like this magic you get from attending these things. And there's so much now, having been in this position for a while, there's so much work that goes into creating that experience. But that experience is the difference between someone feeling like they can learn AI or not, someone feeling like they can be a developer or not. It's the piece that bridges, the human piece that bridges people to the technology and that it's all just learning. We're all just learning. There's no magical right answer for anything. So I try to take a people first, not product approach to everything. Like everything is people first. If you don't have people, you don't have anyone using your product, you can't sell to anyone. So I try to make sure that, you know, if people have a good experience, then you'll build that brand loyalty in that community, and they'll be there to support you on your journey as a developer advocate, as a company. So
Very cool. What about you, Shivani?
I think pretty similar to what Jenna said. I also try to take the people first approach, and since I've been new to this space, it's been a little difficult to navigate around all the managerial stuff. But I'm kind of learning and trying to navigate around. With the communities as well, I think that's something I keep in mind whenever I'm organizing a meetup or a hackathon or any conference. I try to think of it, if I were attending, would I just want to attend talks, or would I want, a complete experience, either with the swag, the talks, just when they enter the venue, they should feel that, okay, this is my space. So I try to create that experience.
I love that. And that leads me into, I guess, a question for both of you. Like, what are some of your favorite parts of this job in the space that you're in? It sounds like you both have a lot of fun and do a lot of really interesting things there.
So I think my favorite part of this job is making tech approachable and accessible. I think as technologists, just historically, there's a tendency to talk tech at people, right? We go in with a lot of assumptions. And I think the reality is, having been a developer, and I think probably everyone here can relate to this, there is no amount of 101 overview that I'm going to be mad at starting with before we jump in. There's never going to be a React or serverless overview that I'm going to be like, I already know this. It's going to be like, oh, thank you for refreshing, because I've been working on 20 other things all week, so level set. So I think it's been being able to approach other technologists as human beings. And, I think that's the first step to tackling imposter syndrome as well, is that, like, we're all just figuring this stuff out. It's going to change every day. We're going to get things wrong. And, the community is there to help support each other and get it right. Without it, we're not going to get anywhere anyway. So.
And Jenna, actually, you brought up this approachable, a theme that I'm noticing from you from our conversation before this and now is really how much you really deeply care about making sure that tech is approachable and accessible. And you've been telling me a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing within IBM to bring approachability, accessibility into the wider lens. Like, can you tell everybody a little bit more about that too?
Sure. So since when I first joined DevRel, and especially coming from a city like Detroit, actually one of the first things I noticed was when the new year started in February and we were running events, I was like, well, looking at the calendar going, where are the Black History Month events? And then in March, where are the International Women's Day events, right? Which companies tend to have a lot of emphasis on the International Women's Day because there's so many more campaigns that companies put money into. But the reality is if you can see it, you can be it. And there are problems with all these technologies is that we don't have everyone represented at a seat at the table. So for me, I purposely, ethically, if I'm going to do an event in February, then I'm going to take a little more time and make sure that we're focused on ethical AI. We're having conversations about bias mitigation and visual and voice recognition software. And not only that I am taking the time to highlight Black and brown technologists who are experts in the field, right? I think the biggest part of DevRel is not being the face. I think the biggest part is creating the space and the platform for other people to speak. So during Pride Month, I always reach out to my team members and colleagues and people I know and make sure that we're creating a space for IBMers who are part of our Out at IBM program, or just really amazing LGBTQ plus IBMers that are DEs and fellows and executives, right? So people can hear from people that they can relate to, and also see that that career trajectory is possible.
That's awesome. I love how much thought you put into every one of your events. I think you shared with me earlier that, you know, there's no reason that we can't put just a little bit more thought into each of these and come to every event that we have bringing a little bit more to it. And I think that that's a takeaway I want to be bringing out with me to so much more. Shubhangi, I want to come back to you though. I asked you what was your favorite thing about DevRel, and then I got down a rabbit hole myself. So let me ask you, what is your favorite thing about developer relations?
I think being an entrepreneur and having a startup side, I always love solving problems. And when you're in the DevRel space, you get to hear a lot of feedback about the product or the way you operate about the product. So I really love to get into that and solve problems and help people out or build something new. So I think that also comes from, you know, participating in a lot of hackathons. So I really love to, you know, just pick a little bit and solve for people.
Awesome. So we're all talking here. The theme of this panel is LGBTQIA plus in developer relations. So let me ask you, like, how does your identity come into play as in every sense, but as particularly as a queer person in this field? Like, how do you think about that? How do you bring that into your work? Are there challenges that you face in that? Tell us more, Jenna.
I think I think that there are a lot of challenges that I see a lot of like my friends and colleagues go through. I think that myself, especially starting in a new field in a new career, I'm very mindful of, as a woman in tech, what I do or don't lead with as well. Like I think there are things about my identity that people who are my teammates and that I'm close to, that they're privy to more than just in general spaces. Because especially, you know, friends, colleagues, family members, when for some reason, when people do not check and fit boxes, it tends to distract from everything else that they try to do. So I think I try to focus really heavily on being an ally for everyone else. And that if I can create a space that works for the people I care about, that'll create a better space for myself as well. I think if that makes sense.
It totally does. I think it's such a powerful thing to think about. It's really interesting to hear you talk about the different ways that you lead with different things. I might come back to that a little bit, but first I want to hear from you, Shubhangi.
I think for me, just accepting was a little bit challenging, or getting accepted as well, because here in India, it's not very common. So, you know, just saying that out front that you are an ally or you're just being supportive, it was difficult. I think I got a lot of courage from having my own space, having my own startup where I could give that space to other people, like Jenna said. So I felt empowered by that. So that helped me a little bit. And in my company, especially the current one, people are really supportive. And my previous company also, that was where I worked with people from all around the globe. And I could see that support. We were a really small team, and just seeing that everyone made me feel accepted, really helped me, just express myself better.
Absolutely. So Jenna, you talked about, sharing, like you pick what parts to lead with, what parts to showcase, and that if somebody has a different perspective and they're trying to put you in a box of, oh, this is the thing, they may very well be very confused by you not meeting that box. And I think that's so interesting to me as we think about queer people and coming out, right? Like it's showing that part of yourself. I know that that's something personally I struggled with so much in my first roles in developer relations. How much do I showcase that for myself? And I guess I'm curious, like, what kind of advice would you share with people who are thinking about showcasing that part of their identity? What would you recommend that they do or don't or think about, or any advice that you have?
Yeah, I think so two things. The first part would be, when you think about I growing up in a household full of male dominated energy and being the only girl, one of the things that I grew up very early doing was, well, if I were a man, what would I do? So I've kind of expanded that as I've gotten into my career, where regardless of what it is, if it's, identity or religion or, different levels of professionalism, whatever it is, I ask myself, well, if I were like the majority of people in tech, what would I do? And I think the first thing that clicks the mind probably for most people is, well, I would act like this is how it is. I would approach it as if this is the way we are doing things, the way we're supposed to be doing things. And I would approach it not as, can we do things this way? But I approach things as, why are we not? So like, I think when we were quickly talking about, conferences and hackathons and things, I approach those conversations directly to leadership and ask, why are we not? Right? Like this is what we normally do is, not a reason for continuing to do anything. And so I will take action as if this is what we are doing, because I know it's what we should be doing. So rather than trying to get people on board, I lead by example and do what I should be doing, and then ask everyone around me why they're either, if they're not, why they're not on board. And a lot of the times it's like, oh, I didn't know the ship was going, let me hop on. Sometimes there are blockers. But one of the things I've been working toward making sure I don't take on this year is, it's not our job to teach other people or explain to them why. It's their job to get an understanding for themselves, and ally or not, it's not their place to prohibit or get in the way of anyone else. And I've had situations where I've had to go back to our business conduct guidelines and literally go through them and write down, like, these are business conduct guidelines being violated through this behavior, and it's prohibiting me from doing my job. And at IBM, one of the tenets of our job is to tirelessly innovate. We're supposed to be leaders, and I think being at a company like IBM, who has such a long history in being advocates for support of underrepresented groups, like way back, and our previous the founders and our previous CEOs has empowered me to, I just remind myself, I'm doing my job, and I know I'm doing my job, and I know I'm doing right by the founders of this company. So if at any point that doesn't work and it costs me my job, I know that I know that it's leading me to a better place where I should be at. So I've kind of had to accept that I'm going to take risks, especially with the way that technology is advancing today. I have to, in order to be an ally for anyone, let alone my own community, and that it will ultimately be for the better, and I'm willing to accept that risk on behalf of other people as well to get us farther.
Really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing and stepping up and being a leader. Shivangi, let me ask you too. What kind of advice would you give to somebody as they're thinking about how to lead as themselves? And yeah, tell us more.
I think what helped me a lot was seeing people who were already in the space and representing the community. I think one from GitHub was one of the most inspiring people I've ever had the chance to meet, and seeing him share about his career and life was something that helped me go through that. So I think that's one of the things that they can do, maybe attending spaces that are inclusive like this one or around. That's really helpful, and talking to people who are similar or want to go into the similar profession can help you come out in a way which sounds more professional. I'm getting to learn a lot here from Jenna herself, so I think or even watching this panel can help people learn a lot.
Very nice. Definitely being that role model, seeing those role models. And I think that you being in this space is absolutely being a role model for lots of people as well. Do you have any other advice too?
Not as such. I think, okay, yeah, there's this one thing that really
I
helped
knew
me.
you did.
So I watched this really interesting TED Talk where they watch a lot of TED Talks, and there's this one where they talk a lot about queer community and how it's completely natural. So a lot of people, like I definitely got into or heard a lot of "you are in a phase" quote, and a lot of people do hear that out a lot. So watching that TED Talk where they explain the science behind it helped me. And at the start of Rahi, we had a compulsion that everyone who comes in has to watch that talk before you step into that zone. And we'll have a discussion in your onboarding meeting or your team meeting, just so you can familiarize yourself with the environment that you're stepping into. So we wanted to be inclusive from the starting itself.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll share is that community and being in spaces, to Shivangi's point, is everything. So for people who identify or people who are curious and want to learn, people who are allies, spaces like I posted in the chat, if you're not familiar, Lesbians Who Tech and Allies, they have an amazing global conference. They have multiple events throughout the year. Just being in the space with other people, not only is it so empowering, but you can learn so much. So for people who are looking for ways to be allies and support, get in the space. Get in the space, ask questions. That's the first step. Whatever you can do, whatever opportunities that you have to, lift up and empower others and encourage others, it's your job to do it. It's not your job to wait on somebody else. One of my big pet peeves is that the BRGs end up doing their own events. Like the Black BRG does Black History Month events. The Women's BRG does International Women's Day events. And they don't get to attend and enjoy them, right? I feel like it should be the reverse. I feel like the whole company should be planning Black History Month so that our, Black and brown employees can actually go and enjoy, and they're not the ones planning them. So things like that. Those are things that I'm hoping to really shift and change in that, like, they're leading and we're executing, so they can actually enjoy the things that are important to the communities.
I that's a great mechanism there. I'm stealing a lot of things from you here that I'm gonna use them in my work. Um, so one thing you talked about though is being in communities. You know, one thing I think about a lot in developer advocacy, developer relations is that the people in the space are fairly public roles by virtue of what they are. How do you think about particularly as you're bringing various portions of your identity into these spaces, like the parts that feel safe to do that in, and the parts where you feel like, hey, maybe this is a challenge, maybe this isn't something I can bring or should bring, or maybe there's a stigma. How do you address that? How do you start approaching that at all? Jenna, I'll start with you.
I think I just, and maybe this is from coming from a healthcare background as well, I approach everything from like work related, obviously, or industry related, from a very professional point of view. I just like, you know, like business first. So for instance, and I think about things a lot too. So like if I'm in a meeting and, you know, we're talking about, I don't know, we're talking about something. Normally you don't hear things come up about age or whether someone's a parent or if they're going to be like, there are conversations around different areas of discrimination that are legally protected. So one of the things I like to do is make sure I am aware and understand what they are. Number two, that I share them with, you know, my community and in communities that I support, and that I don't overshare in spaces where I don't have to. I'm very much like a no filter person. But as I'm moving, you know, I've been in my career for a while now. I think I have enough of a community that I've built that I have safe places to share in. And you know, I can redirect or put things back on track if they're, you know, if something is not relevant to the conversation or an appropriate question to ask or talk about, you know, I don't answer it. I mean, again, I think about like, well, if I were my peers, what would I do? And it's like, I probably wouldn't answer it, you know, or I'd be like, is that really what we should be talking about right now? You know, how does this relate to, you know, what is it we're supposed to be focused on?
Thank you. And Shibangi?
I kind of have a similar answer here. Whenever we're in a meeting or in spaces, it's mostly about solving something. It could be a problem, maybe you're talking about advocacy, and your identity could help you propose a solution, but it doesn't have to be upfront, or you don't have to fight each time for getting what you want. Maybe you can be subtle about it and communicate in a well-planned manner where you make the solution or the advocacy feel inclusive, but also not be very upfront about your identity. I mean, I know it kind of sounds confusing, but sometimes because people are more accepting of the people like them. So when you know and you're proposing the solution which is inclusive, you know that you're doing that, and yeah, you don't always have to fight.
Gotcha. And can I put you on the spot and ask you for maybe even an example of a time where you did that, and a time where you were able to propose one of these solutions based on your knowledge of yourself and who you are and all that?
Yeah, I think so. I was working as a consultant for a company, and they wanted me to organize an event. And I had previously attended their events, and they were usually, I would say, 90% of the male audience and only a few of the other underrepresented groups. And so I wanted it to be more inclusive, not just gender-wise, but also globally, or sorry, I mean, you know, I just wanted different representation to be there. So I didn't go upfront and say that, okay, you know, we should do like 50% male, 50% female. I didn't say that out loud. I said, we want a diverse group so we can have different perspectives there. So I kind of played around with the words so they understood why it's important to have inclusivity instead of just having it for the numbers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I took a similar approach with events and conferences this year. So I've been working on plans for getting regular cadence at specific conferences, as well as adding some hackathons. And so I've been rather than trying to explain and I guess talk around people's preconceived notions and biases. And this was part of the DEI piece that we kind of talked about earlier, was I just ask questions back. So when I say Lesbians Who Tech is the global LGBTQ plus conference, why are we not here? Like, this is a conference that we should be focusing on. Not from this is a tech conference. A lot of times we say DEI, and we, for some reason, it's like automatically not technical. I'm not really sure what the thing is, but it's like, no, these are the top leaders in the space at companies globally. Like, let's capitalize on this. And so, if and when I get feedback about, well, this isn't something, we've focused on in the past, or this isn't something normally we've done. My question is always, well, what about this makes you think it's not technical? And why aren't we in this space? Right? Like, why are we at KubeCon, but we're not at Lesbians Who Tech? Because there should be a very clear data-driven response to why we are or we're not. So let me help get you the data so that we can change this and make sure we're showing up in the spaces we should to have the impact we want to have, especially as leaders in AI. We need to make sure we're reaching everyone.
I think that you both draw such an interesting point of like being able to bring that data and proof that there's so much to all of these places that is not just an identity, but it is the value of each person and what they are doing there. These technical people, these technical spaces. That's so cool. We're coming to nearly our end of time. So I'm going to ask you both if there's any final things that you want to share as it relates to our topic here, or anything that you want the various people here right now and watching online in the future to come away with. Shubhangi, I'm going to start with you, and I'll ask you to share anything.
I think something that I really believe in is that you don't have to be pressurized to come out to anyone at all, be at work or in your personal space. Just share with the people you are comfortable around and give yourself time to just accept yourself and let the people around you accept you as well. It will take time, but don't feel pressurized to just come out. And yeah, that's my end note.
Thank you.
Yeah, following I would say yes, and don't feel pressured to explain. I think a lot of it comes from feeling the need, like you need to explain yourself. Like, people don't really get me because I don't really fit into a box, and I need to like explain away or try to explain who I am and get people on board. You don't have to, nobody has to be on board. The right people will be on board, and they will come to you, and you'll find each other. Find your communities. They're out there. Check them out. It can be scary going in alone. I remember when I attended my first Lesbians Who Tech conference, I was like, by myself there, and like trying to find my people. And I ended up walking away with some of my closest friends and professional friends professionally as well, that like those are the people I go to for career advice. So I mean, don't feel pressured to, you should be able to be yourself completely at work, and if you're not, then maybe there's a healthier space for you to be in, and lean on your network to help you find that better space.
Thank you so much, both of you, for coming here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for all the knowledge that you shared, and helping us create this space. It was really wonderful to hear everything you had to say, and Thank you. Happy Pride to everyone here. We, as part of this panel, we're able to raise some money for every single person who registered. We'll be donating $350 to the Trevor Project as a result of this, in addition to all sorts of other work that MLH does here. Also in the space, Major League Hacking, we really do try to create spaces for all sorts of folks, whether those are our students in our community or people in developer relations. That's why we're doing these things every single month, these panels on all sorts of things, whether it's parts of our identity, parts of our work, how those interplay, as we heard here today. As Fiona has shared in chat, we have another conversation coming up next month in gosh, I'm not going to do the math well enough, like 19 or 20 short days here. Will you hear from one of our co-founders? So if you want to take a minute to register there, and please feel free to connect with anybody in this space to continue the conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.